The green certificates? This has been a traditional practice at FICCI. Instead of giving bouquets, something they present the green certificates, planting trees in the names of the dignitaries, making the planet greener. Thank you so much, Mr. Pankaj, and I'll now request Mr. Soumitra Bose to take this session forward. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very heterogeneous mix of people on my right and my left. This is obviously, it's like playing mixed doubles in a tournament. So I have MPs on my left, I have people from the media on my right, and there's one gentleman on the extreme left who's into fitness. And I think for the last several weeks, we've been talking about fitness. And the Prime Minister is talking about fitness. As one of the themes of this entire day has been fitness. And we've been talking about many things which are fit for running sports in India. A little bit about myself. I've been in this business of sports for the last 35 years. And I've seen what's fit and what's unfit. But unfortunately, we are still not fit as a sporting nation. And why we are not fit as a sporting nation is largely due to several factors. In the last panel, we heard Vishal Dev speaking about Odisha being the sports capital of India. But yes, I mean, sports capital of India is one thing. I think when we'll have the Tokyo Olympics in the middle of next year, and when we will count our medals, then everything will probably fall flat. Just to give you a little bit of background, the current government is pretty gung-ho about sports. So when you see Mr. Rijiju in almost every day attending some function or the other, and the Prime Minister's endeavor to make the nation fit, these are probably attempted to make cultural differences in making India a sporting nation, not really to win medals. So the previous sports minister, Rajyavardhan Singh Rathore, started this Khelo India movement. It was initially a school games, then it became a youth games. The last time it was held in Pune, it tried to achieve a lot of things. I was personally there watching these games, and it gave me an idea that, at least he was trying to do something which is right, in the sense that he was trying to get in an atmosphere of the Olympics. And there were stadiums, many events were being held under one roof. There were plethora of, sports persons participating. There was a games village. So everything actually came back from the fact that, Rathore himself was an Olympian and, of course, a medalist. To have somebody running the game, a sportsman running the ministry was excellent. Like today you have Ganguly running the BCCI. God knows for how long, maybe it's 10 years, 10 months, but of course he's appealed to the Supreme Court that he should serve his full tenure, but that we'll leave it for another discussion. But what's right and what's wrong, it's going to be a long debate, yeah? But our discussion today, we will try and bridge two aspects of two seminars, two panels. One is the Fanonomics. I mean, what is the role of the fan in driving sport? And from the gentleman on my left, we will get a concept of what the government is trying to achieve, or what they are individually trying to do in their own areas of interest, so that sports grows as a culture. You must understand that there's a difference between winning Olympic medals and becoming a sports fit country. They're entirely two different things. I think the people who have heard the panel before last, there was this Dutch gentleman who was involved with Dutch football. He said that on weekends, they invite people from IKEA. IKEA is a store, it's something like, it's a multi-department store. You get more, people go and buy furniture and things like that. We have an IKEA store in India as well. And other marts to come and play football. Can you imagine people from Pantaloons and Big Bazaar playing football on weekends? Just impossible. You can never think of people working in Big Bazaar and Pantaloons going to play football on weekends. That's not possible, because that's not in our culture, because we all go and do shopping on weekends. But who are the biggest stakeholders? The stakeholders obviously are the fans and of course the people who broadcast things. Kartikeya is the multifaceted man. He runs television channels. He also runs sport organization, and he runs 2 newspapers. So as a media person, who do you think are the biggest stakeholders, one, and what are the right steps that we need to do to take this forward as a sporting nation, so that we just not watch sport on whatever platform it is, but we actually become a fit nation in terms, and the culture of sports develops.
So I'll start with a couple of experiences. We started Pro Sportify about 4.5 years ago, and Pro Sportify, we started off with Pro Wrestling League, which was the first product which was in association with the Wrestling Federation of India. And we created a new format and a new IPR, and trying to develop a new vertical altogether, basically create an individual sport into team sport. And the journey of that sport and how it's been will throw light on some of those aspects what you've spoken of. So what started off is pretty much not knowing how clearly we will go about building a product like that, because there was no precedence of such a matter in anywhere else globally. We are now very proudly the largest wrestling league in the world in its IPR. It has reached to close to 300 million people in every year's season that we've gone on, and it has generated more than 100 crores of commerce in the 4 years of existence that has been around. From the point in time that where a number of wrestlers who were not even big stars at that point of time were found there. The sporting quotient was very large. That actually made us understand how the ecosystem of sport works and what are the different aspects within the framework that are so important. So just to give you a couple of statistics, we have more than 100 Olympians playing in the league. We have more than 15 Olympic champions, current Olympic champions playing in the league. We have more than 14 world champions playing in the league. We have more than 100 countries taking part in it. And as a result, we've, from the first year, second year onwards, we've had great finds like Sakshi Malik, who won in the first season by defeating Geeta Fogart, and in many ways the byproduct of that platform, and so many others who have come out and used this opportunity to fight to the best in the world. The opportunities our sports people do not get is the exposure that they need, and this exposure is the biggest problem. Yes, there are issues of sporting training facilities, there are other areas which need concern and attention, but the biggest problem is the exposure and independent, sustainable business models which can create enough revenue options and revenue generation opportunities for them. I think that is the biggest area of concern, and that's the biggest area of growth as well.
Thank you, Karthik. That's the corporate viewpoint. I would go to Mr. Singh on my left, Vijendra Singh. Just to give a little background of himself, he's been an IS officer for 20 years. And I was reading an interview with his wife, and he says that why this sudden transformation from an IS officer to an MP? First, that question I think has not been answered by you, so maybe you can start with that.
The transition happened partly by choice and partly by compulsion. All said and done, it's been a family thing. I'm a 4th generation politician now. But there was this desire to have an identity of own. So that took me towards the civil services exam. In fact, I used to tell a lot of people that for me the civil services got over the day I qualified. But it took a long time. I was there for 21 years, and now I'm here as Member of Parliament from Hisar in Haryana. And since we are on a panel which is discussing sports, let me just say that in my 21 years of Sarkari Naukri, I was never in the sports department, never involved with any sports associations, but I was an avid cricketer in my younger days and follow sports very closely. But as far as administration of sport is concerned, I have zero experience in that. Thank you.
That's all right. In fact, my question is that you did your master's from King's College in the UK. So I would like you to share that, having studied in a European university, how important is to have good college sports in the development of the country's as a sporting nation?
Since you mentioned King's College, that was very recent as year before last. That was one of the perks of being in the service, which allowed us to go for a foreign training for 1 year to do a master's course. Otherwise, I'm a postgraduate from JNU and did my undergrad from St. Stephen's College. And experience from both the places, there are no sports in JNU, so let's leave that aside. Yep. They are into different kind of sports always. But otherwise, Delhi University, St. Stephen's College, and then this exposure of London for 1 year, there is a world of difference. We have, at least when I was in school and college, sports was very specific to certain educational institutions. Cricket would be good in a couple of schools. There used to be Sardar Patel Vidyalaya, Modern School, and Air Force Bal Bharati. Similarly, in college also, there'd be athletics in some colleges, there'd be cricket in another, and so on and so forth. The only holistic sports institute I ever saw in my life was Rai Sports School, Motilal Nehru School of Sports at Rai in Haryana. That's the only place I've seen which was totally dedicated to sports. Going to London, the facilities which you see there, the infrastructure, whether it's schools, educational institutions, or areas in general, there's hardly a mile you cross without coming across a good sporting facility. When I say a sporting facility which would perhaps match our Siri Fort Sports Complex. And you would have them at every 5 kilometers, every 7 kilometers. So that's the kind of exposure which is there. And in India, we are used to sleeping long hours on our chuttis. Their chutti meant to go out with your family to a sports stadium, to a sports field. That's a basic difference. When you're talking about imbibing a sports culture, I think that's where the difference lies. Here, sports have picked up more as a profession because money has come in. But otherwise, sporting culture, we are still far away from that.
You represent a state called Haryana. In fact, we had an IAS officer like you in the previous panel, and he said that if you type the sports capital of India, the name of Odisha will come up. I think if you should have been in the same panel and had a debate. We always thought Haryana was the sports capital of India.
No, last few years, Odisha has come up as a state with amazing sports facilities, especially Bhubaneswar. They've organized, I think, Hockey World Cup, Champions Trophy, and some other real big events. So that way, Odisha has really come up. But as far as sports capital is concerned, if you look at the Olympic disciplines and then the games, whether it's Commonwealth, Asian Games or Olympics, I think last 15-20 years Haryana has been contributing more than 60% of the total medals that we get, whatever we get. So in that sense, yes, the sports capital in terms of producing sportsmen and especially sportsmen who excel, my state is way ahead. There was a time when Punjab used to be the premier sporting state in the country, but right now I think that mantle has come to my state.
Excellent. So I think you would have had a great debate with Mr. Deb, but it's between Odisha or Odisha versus Haryana.
I totally I concede their point. Totally.
Yes. I think my next question will be to Rahulji. You represent Rajasthan, and you come from a place called Churu, and the only thing that we hear about Churu is the high temperatures in summer.
Yeah, you can say that.
What about sports?
We are we are neighboring to Haryana only. The border area of Haryana is Rajasthan. We start from my constituency. This is Churu, the hottest and the coldest place in the country. You will be hearing in December that we are touching -1, and in summers we are touching 50. So beyond that, there is a hell lot of things in Churu. You can't stick to this only. But sports, as a member of parliament, I will stick to my points only. We have tried, because we have also a lot of good players which have performed good in internationally and nationally also. So as a member of parliament, I always try to put impetus on the infrastructure. In last 5 years, this is my second term of a member of parliament. Last term I tried and I got it. One of the best synthetic track for Olympic level class 1 in my district headquarters, the stadium. It's an Olympic level track which is being certified by the France Olympic agencies also. So it's a 6.5 crore investment which we got it in our constituency. Now, as a member of parliament, we are trying to take it the sports infrastructure at the panchayat levels, where in Rajasthan we have schools in each and every panchayat of class 12th. So with the My MP led fund and the Narega fund, we are building up a 400-meter track at the village level, so students can play and have this kind of facilities. We have got 4-day boarding centers in my constituency for athletics, table tennis, volleyball, and hockey. So we are trying to give the basic infra for the kids so that they can perform well, and I hope the results will come soon. We have got also a lot of good medals for in the constituency in the field of athletics. What I feel is the country is too big, and we have a local acumen to perform in different fields. So my constituency, which is more into wrestling, more into kabaddi, and more into athletics, we are focusing on those lines and trying to help out people. And I hope my district will be one of the first district in the Rajasthan state where we will be having a basic sports infrastructure in each and every panchayat level.
Excellent. He's just 42, and that's the advantage of having young MPs. He's the youngest MP from Rajasthan. I think both Mr. Kaswan and Mr. Singh will have to address more important issues in the parliament, because there are certain things that are happening which are not really sporting in the country right now, and they need to be at the house. I think, by the way, you all know that Guwahati is going to host a very important sporting event, and things are not going right now, so that's not part of our discussion. So a round of applause for Mr. Singh and Mr. Kaswan, because they have to go. Okay, Mr. Singh wants to say something. Please go ahead.
When I was to come for this panel discussion, I did pen down some random thoughts. I'm neither speaking for the government nor trying to make any suggestions, but a few things I realized. I don't know whether a lot of you have or not. There's a very strong linkage between areas with a sporting tradition from where a lot of people are going to the armed forces also. I sense some connection there. I don't know if someone has done a paper on it or not, some research on it or not, but that's how it is, whether it's Haryana, Punjab, just two states where this is quite evident. Second, we have all the sports facilities in terms of infrastructure only in urban areas, whereas all your athletes, all your wrestlers, all your boxers, all your Olympians, they are all coming from the rural hinterland, or what we call the mufassil towns, the small towns, where in fact the game of cricket is also gone there now. It no longer is Bombay, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore capturing everything. It's now Bareilly and Ranchi and Indore and such places where a lot of cricketers are also coming from. So this urban-rural divide is very much evident. And lastly, I don't know why, but we should think of something like what they have in the UK. I know in India lottery is a bad word, but lottery system in UK has done wonders for their sports there. the kind of money which is flowing into sports there down to the lowest levels. Even if you go to market areas, in the public places there, you have these table tennis tables with the TT bat and the balls, badminton facility, and you'll have a small sticker there. It's all courtesy the lottery system. I'm not advocating a lottery system, but just saying that we must be thinking out of the box in terms of financing sport. It cannot just be the government. It's heartening that corporates have started coming in, and the biggest case in point is Kabaddi. Kabaddi League, I mean, thanks to all these guys, and again, most of those leagues, most of those teams on the Kabaddi League, I think 60% players are from Haryana. They are playing.
In fact, just to add to whatever you said, I mean, 2012 London Olympics, I was part of the press team there, and the entire Great Britain contingent was actually sponsored by the British Lottery. The entire funding was done by them,
absolutely.
And as you rightly said, that lottery, things like gambling, all these things are cuss words in Indian context, in the sense that we think there's something wrong with it. Well, maybe there's something wrong with it, but there's something right with it as well.
I'd like to add something to that.
Yes, and Karthik, yes, please.
So what the Honourable Member of Parliament has said right now, I think there's a lot of merit to it that sport can't be run by government. I mean, you know, government is there, and the whole idea in the sporting fraternity, I've been working with a number of sports. So we're from wrestling league to a polo league to a boxing league now. That's what we're doing at the moment. So it's going from a massy sport to one of the most premier sports in the world. The point over here is that, you know, the mindset that exists, that people want to play a sport so they can land a government job, that needs to change in the country.
Absolutely.
The primary motivation to play sport should not be for landing a job. I mean, yes, it is important for them to fend for themselves and find a livelihood, but that cannot be the criteria, and that's the reason why we are not getting where we can and the kind of potential we have. And in extension to what you were suggesting about the lottery, I think all these leagues are a testament of the fact that, you know, an ecosystem, a commercially conducive ecosystem can work and provide. I mean, just from the wrestling, barring the federation in wrestling, which has done a lot for the sport, but we as an entity have spent something close to 80 crore rupees in the last 4 years to the wrestlers directly, without any government. That's more money than Government of India or CSR money which has gone into the field of wrestling in the last 4 years. So those are the kind of potential opportunities that need to be created, platforms that need to be created, where the average Joe who works very hard has an opportunity to break through and build a career for themselves which is financially viable. Unless we don't give financially viable propositions and platforms, sports cannot grow. I mean, that's the only reason why cricket is growing and no other sport is growing.
Thank you. We'll just take a small little break, so we'll have to excuse Mr. Singh and Mr. Kaswan. Thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Nice to meet you. Uncle used to come for the pro wrestling league. He came and watched the performance. Thank you. We get in touch.
Pankaj, can you just bring him closer? Okay, so we'll go back to our original topic, which was Fanonomics. What is Fanonomics is basically how fans connect with the economics of sports. So that's what Fanonomics, because without the fan, there's no economics. And as Karthika just said, that, you know, amount of money spent in pro wrestling, the amount of funds, they have a very complex ecosystem, in the sense that, yes, everything can't be done by the government. In the previous panel, there were at least two people from the government. You know, one was from representing the Railway Sports Control Board, and one was the sports secretary of the government of Odisha. So, they have different mindsets and, different ways of doing things. But here we have three professionals. I mean, in the sense that they are heavily into media. Karthikeya, as you heard him speak, but I think there is one gentleman on my left. I think Mr. Singh said that in UK every 3 kilometers you'll see a sports facility where you can go and participate. And what we have seen now is that every 3 kilometers you'll probably see a gym. Yeah, you'll see a gym where you will see people doing weights and various other things. Just a small little story that I'd like to narrate here, in the sense that is gymming the way is the way to get fit? Well, I'll give you a small little story here. So I was interviewing Virendra Sehwag for one of an issue in our magazine Outlook, and I asked him that how do you stay fit? He said, I stay fit by drinking warm water with honey in the morning, going for a walk for 45 minutes, and then spending time with my academic kids. That's all I do. And I do some yoga and meditation. I said, when you played cricket, did you ever think of doing weights? He said, yes, we did a bit of weights, but not like the weights that the current Indian team does. So I said, what do you mean by that? He said that Virat Kohli posts all his fitness videos on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and the moment people see, all cricketers try to lift weights. Like they want to be like Virat Kohli, they want to have 6 packs and stuff like that. And he said that's not the way. Even Harbhajan Singh is also lifting weights at this age. God knows why. So that's his definition of fitness. So in this kind of a scenario, you have a fitness app. And how does it help? My question is, how does it help? What's the business model? What kind of feedback you get from people? If you could just tell the audience. Sure.
Howdy, everybody. So, just to deviate a little bit, our company was called Howdy Ventures in 2016, by the way. Howdy Modi has nothing to do with it. But Howdy Modi has brought in a lot of visibility to our company. And Fit India Movement, what Mr. Prime Minister Modi has launched, basically, we have been doing since 2017. Basically, we are trying to get everybody into sports and fitness. So Howdy Do is actually a sports and fitness app. So we bring together the various classes, we bring together the various, where can you find local football classes, for example, or how do you find, form groups. I want to find a goalie for my team. I want to find local events that are happening within my neighborhood. You won a particular tournament, you post it up over here. You can live stream using our application. We have created something called sportsfitjobs.com, which is a sports and it's a job portal exclusively for sports and fitness. We have created something called sportscsr.org, which is a crowdfunding for sports and fitness. So we're trying to bring an entire ecosystem around it. We also provide our application to other people for fan engagement and things like that too. So think of it like Madurai Panthers, for example, is one of my customers. Special Olympics football, Madras FC, Tamarin FC, Indian Darts Federation. These are all some of our customers who have used our application to engage with their audiences, either during matches and offline matches as well.
So that's the perspective, but as professional journalists, life has changed. I mean, just to go back to the digitization of sports, it is something that has happened. It's not too old actually. It started only in 2006, and again it started with sports, by the way, and then in 2006 I used to work in a company called ESPN Star Sports. They were together. It was a JVC, and I used to run a television program called the Sports Center. Sports Center was one of the world's finest sports shows. It's not because I was one of the producers. It's because it was a concept that was borrowed from Disney, who were the owners of ESPN. In 2006, the the television business was, there was more challenges to ESPN Star Sports, and there were other channels called 10 Sports and other channels like Z. They were all coming in, and they were all trying to take a pie of the cake, which it was a monopoly business by ESPN Star Sports at that point in time. So ESPN Star Sports thought that there should be alternative models of business, and money should come in from other sources. And they were sitting on tons of sports footage, exclusive sports footage, and that was in 2006. The first digital move was made by ESPN in a concept called mobile ESPN. Mobile ESPN at that point in time, we had a 2G service. I think all of you know what is 2G and what is 4G and what is 5G. It is a bandwidth that is available to transfer data. So that was the path, and and within that 2G framework, mobile ESPN was born in October 2006. That was the first time digitization of sports started. And so when the MD walked up to me and said, I was the senior most man in the production team, that would you like to do digital? So nobody knew what was digital at that point in time, because nobody had any concept of digital. So I'm saying 2006, and we're 2019. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll give it a try. And then, at that point in time, digitization of sports was only through text, and then it was through voice, and then it was something called shortcode. So what is a shortcode? Shortcode is something that, today you will also get to see a lot of SMSs coming to you that you want to reply to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and get. That's a shortcode. It's a bit of a shortcode. So, but the transformation, the evolution of digitization of sports happened very quickly. That was, from simple text and voice, it became rich text, and then it became small forms of video, and then today you have live streaming, and a live streaming of things, and how quickly, the audience or the way they consumed content changed. So that's the speed at which it happened, so, and very rightly so. At that point in time, in 2006 and 2007, there were two companies that also saw the advantage of doing digital sports. That was obviously at that point, and there was no Jio at that point in time. Of course, we had Vodafone and Airtel. So how the business grew. But as professionals, when we used to go and cover events, that obviously ESPN Star brought to you all the live events. But what about live things that are happening? Let's say the Indian team is practicing at Lords before a Pakistan match, and you want to see the visuals. There was this guy, there was this company, it was not possible to shoot and broadcast it back to Singapore from where the broadcast would happen. That is where this gentleman on the extreme right, Ranjit Bhatti's company, came in. His company is called Live View. How many of you know what is Live View? How many of you know what is Live View? Not you.
Of course I do.
No, not you, not you. Yes. What's Live View?
Live View is the live streaming. Basically, we are doing live streaming. I'm from Live View only.
Oh, no, then not you, not you, not you. Anyone else? Do you know what is Live View? We love you, actually. We, as journalists, we love you. But what's Live View? Are you from Live View? No, okay. Excellent. So that's very well. It's like a OB van size of a small tiffin box. That's all. All you have to do is put in some gadgets in your television cameras, and it goes live from wherever you are. It can be in Atlantic also. It can be in the top of Everest also. Ranjit, I think you guys have done some phenomenal work. And could you tell us how it has transformed business of digital sports?
Thank you, Mr. Bose. So I was just wondering, I'm going to talk, and I don't think anybody in this room would know, of course, except Karthik, sir. Everybody would not know what Live View is. I was thinking I'll start with an introduction, but thank you for helping me out there. So Live View essentially is the global leader in providing technology to go live for live streaming. What we do is very simple. You know that you used to have those DSNG trucks and those fiber cables to do live streaming. What we do is we just take your cellular SIM cards. We have maybe 10 SIM cards or 8 SIM cards together, and then we bond. This is the patent that we have. We bond all of that bandwidth together, and we give you a reliable infrastructure, a reliable bandwidth, which you can use to go live, you can stream. We're very popular in the news world, and now we are also getting a lot of traction in the sports world. Now, this is the introduction about LiveView. So, as you know, today the trend is going live, and everybody is, in India especially, everybody wants, to get that media attention, and everybody is going live on Facebook, YouTube. And on the other hand, like you also said, there is a very sharp increase in the use of second screen. Second screen is your iPads, your handheld devices, your phones, which you're using for content consumption. So there is a lot of demand for content. So this is the right time. This is the opportunity for a lot of people, a lot of businesses in sports to ride this wave of second screen and going live. So let me give you an example. So let's talk about some football clubs, very leading football clubs in the Western countries, Napoli, Juventus as such. You know that they have huge fan base. And besides telecasting their main games on the television, they have a lot of fan engagement which they do, which they drive traffic towards their pages or the portals. What do? They kind of showcase, like you said, the practice games. They have these tier 2 or tier 3 level teams which do their friendly games or their practice. They do interviews for stars. They do action in the dugouts. There could be a birthday for one of the star players. So everything, all this content is being pushed onto their web page, and it's giving a reason for their fans to come back to the web page, and you're generating more and more traffic, you're generating stickiness, audience stickiness, and loyalty towards your page. What this means, what this results into is you can now start selling more merchandise, you can start selling more tickets, you can do, sales, you can also do ads, so stuff like that. So the opportunity for us here in India, we also have a lot of clubs, and we have good data, which is also cheap. So you can probably use this opportunity to have your own pages, and then you can stream. Most of the clubs, they're looking for exposure. They can stream to the YouTube channels, or they can probably have their own Facebook page, and we can help you stream live. And you can do the same thing. You can show your practice matches, even your main games, because they're not being telecast on television. If you're a tier 2 league or a team which is not getting that kind of a large audience, or doesn't have the budget to go on television, definitely you can have your own web presence, online presence, and you will start building your own audiences. And as and when your audiences grow, there are certain platforms, let's say YouTube, which will also start paying you when you have larger and a sizable amount of audience. So this is what's happening, and most important here, because this is a sports forum, obviously we're talking about monetization, but the athlete or the sportsman is getting the exposure which he's not getting right now, and he really deserves that exposure by maybe getting 100 hits on a YouTube channel.
Just to add to what he said, that La Liga, as you know, it's the French league, and they have started their own La Liga TV, and within a month or so they have had 400,000 users, and they are not showing Messi's matches. They are showing regular Spanish sports, but not the regular. Just imagine the connectivity of the sports audience with not the main La Liga, but other sports in Spain. So that is example of what exactly sporting culture means. That how many of us would pay to watch a handball match in Haryana? Probably none of us would do that. Probably like to, right now as we speak, India is going to play West Indies in the third and final match, a T20 match at Wankhede. So everybody is going to tune into that. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have a gentleman from Hotstar with us on this panel. More about Hotstar a little later. But talking of live streaming, how can we not talk about something called OTT? OTT, I think over the top. I think all of you know what is OTT. To make it life simple for you, how many of you haven't seen Netflix or Hotstar? How many of you haven't seen? Please raise your hand. How many of you have not seen Sacred Games on Netflix? All of you see. You've seen? Okay, you haven't seen. Okay. You've seen? Okay, you know what is OTT? It is live streaming. It's live streaming over internet. So you don't need satellite channels. That's why television now is called dumb TV. And this is something called smartphone. You can see everything thanks to people like Ranjit and LiveView. That OTT is something that you can see just on the basis of having a simple internet connection. You can watch live cricket, you can watch live soaps, you can like drama, anything that you want, right? And you don't have to tune into a television, so you don't have to have those set-top boxes and cables and other things. That's what OTT is all about. So this is exactly where the business is going. He mentioned words like stickiness, the consumption of sports material. All that translates into money. Okay? And everything that you see, like OTT, you must have heard of Amazon Prime, right? Amazon Prime is also OTT. So Amazon is not only selling you, hair color and nail polishes and soaps and other things. They're selling you content. They're sending you very quality content. And obviously my next question is, how do you decide on the content? What is good and what is bad? Or rather, my question is, what sells and what doesn't sell?
So you're very right about one thing, that sports needs to be looked at as content, not just sport, because of the sheer reach that television or OTT brings to it. And, it's simple economics. I mean, versus 10,000 or 15,000 people in a stadium versus 100 million people you reach out to on a television platform or an OTT platform. So the world is more skewed towards that direction, and for a good reason. I'll give you some examples. Hotstar you spoke of, it's already received 400 million downloads. In the India versus Pakistan match, during the 8 hours of the match, there were 365 million live viewers who actually came and saw the match. That's a phenomenal number. 95% of the consumption was done on mobile. Now, these figures are only telling you that the way people consume content is changing, and the definition of content is also changing. So when you look at sports, I mean, although our panel was supposed to talk about fan engagement and things that are associated with that, I'm going to touch a little bit on that as well. You see, the problem with sport or the sporting culture that we speak of is that there aren't enough opportunities. So when we are trying to foist a concept of sport that is alien to us, it doesn't come naturally to us, it will take much longer. So let me speak of, for instance, about the ISL. It has taken a very, very long time for it to get any traction, to come to the level it has in the 7th season it's been around. But compare it with a kabaddi or a wrestling match, which has genuine traction on the ground and genuine following on the ground, is growing exponentially. Now, the reason for that is the level of interest is genuine, and it is much higher because these are games which have been played in every nook and cranny of the country for the longest time. If you look at the US example, that have exactly the same thing which happened there. They did not import the sport, they created their own sport. And what is popular on the ground needs to be proliferated. You cannot import sport from other countries or think that this is a great sport internationally, has great growth in Europe or in Africa for that fact. You bring it to India and it will do well in India as well. So what is indigenous to us, what comes naturally to us, will have a natural growth curve. And I think that is one of the biggest testaments to sports like wrestling and kabaddi. And that's why they outshine sports like tennis or football. I mean, I'll give you a specific example. We were having the finals of the first pro wrestling league in the IG Stadium. We were also having the finals of the Indian tennis league, where we had Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, the biggest names in the world playing. Our sponsor was Coke, and so was there, so we had a lot of access to information between both the venues. And they only sold 500 tickets. In spite of some of the biggest sporting stars in the world, they only sold 500 tickets, and we were having a lathi charge, and we could not manage the crowd outside because there were 4 cabinet ministers who could not find their way in. Now, the only point I'm trying to make here is that the sport which has traction genuinely on the ground does not need that additional bit of push. You don't need Salman Khan to come and tell you and advertise and say this is a popular sport. People already know it's a popular sport. So we are looking at the wrong areas. We need to look at the right areas. Firstly. Secondly, we need to understand if that platform will be successful, it will grow, it will evolve into a successful business proposition. That's the only way the ecosystem will thrive. You're talking about tier 2, tier 3. Let's talk about tier 1 right now. I mean, tier 1 is not successfully established. Once that is, then the second and third and the other ones will come in. That's where your rural sports kick in. That's where the affinity. At the bottom line, people in India say, कुछ खेलना है तो क्रिकेट खेलो, बड़े होकर कुछ पैसे बन सकते हैं.
Quite right. In fact,
and if you do not change that thought process, I don't think sport can grow in this country the way we want it.
Somebody asked, in fact, what are the top 5 sports in India? And this is a very common question when you go and cover an Olympics. You know, and they know that we are a cricket mad country. And somebody asked, it was a seminar, and somebody asked us, so what are the top 5 sports in India? So we said cricket, 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 cricket. So what is that? They said all top 5 is all cricket. Yeah, and it actually shows. And in what Kartikeya says that we are aspiring to March probably. And he mentioned about ISL. It has no link with the masses. That's why when a tournament which is mainly club based, why does English football or Spanish football thrive? Because they connect very well with the masses. Yeah. There's no connection. I mean, the problem is when there is no connect, you're trying to kill club football, for example, in India. Like, why does kabaddi or wrestling connect better? I mean, it's mitti ka thi. It's something to do with the soil. I mean, when you play, is something that do. Okay, it's very nice to have expertise in or having high performance center or 10 sports. But are you going to produce 10 Olympic medals?
So let me give you another statistic, sir. Sorry for the interference, but we have won more medals in the sport of wrestling from 1947 till date than all other sports put together. I'm talking about Asian Games, I'm talking about Commonwealth Games, I'm talking about World Championships, I'm talking about Olympics. All of the international tournaments put together. I mean, that's how much contribution it has already made. Point being, what comes naturally, obviously, allows our ability to perform at an international level also much better.
Absolutely. In fact, Sudhakar, you are into fitness, and sports and fitness. I mean, the government is very gung-ho about fitness. I mean, everything that the Prime Minister or his people around him, they're all talking about fitness, fitness, fitness. Is it more talk than work, or is it really, I mean, are we at all going to become a fit country, I mean, physically and mentally fit country?
I think the fitness in India is going to grow, definitely. It has been growing since the time we started, believe it or not. We actually started at the right time is what we think. Because since the time we have started, we have seen a growth which is exponential. Just to kind of give you an idea, there are 5,000 sports and fitness centers in Chennai alone. There are 30,000 in Bombay. That's the numbers we're talking about. So we really have seen this kind of a growth. For example, every rooftop has become a futsal arena. One of my first investors is Mr. Xavier Brito, who actually started Premier Futsal. So when he started Premier Futsal, for example, there were no futsal arenas on top, rooftops in 2016-17. Today, if you look at it, almost every rooftop has been utilized either as a cricket net or as a futsal this thing, or it has been used for some sport or the other, and that growth has become tremendous. Coming to also talking about something very interesting. So we have seen tremendous amount of. So there is another statistics which also shows the number of people who have either played or used or have done any sort of fitness is only 30% of the population. But funny as it may be, the same population have spent 4.5 hours of their time watching content, either watching content or chatting about it every day. That's the number, 4.5 hours. This is the statistics given by Times of India and Puma, which did the statistics on this, which came in Times of India, which basically I'm referring to. So, and that engagement, our application, for example, we actually, we actually provide our application where anybody can live stream is something that we do with our mobile phone. It's like Facebook Live, right? So we have our application where any tournament or anything can be live streamed using our application. And believe it or not, the amount of time that people spend in our application has gone up nearly 1,000% since the time we introduced this feature set. So Tamarin FC, which uses our application as an example, live streams all their local tournaments. I mean, they basically are one of the FIFA approved clubs in Chennai, and they live stream everything. And believe it or not, the amount of content, we thought that how many people are going to actually watch this. The local tournaments are being watched in our application. Close to about 40 to 15 minutes is the amount of time they spend in our application at this point.
That's exactly what he is supplementing to what these two gentlemen are saying, that you need to be more, in touch with the masses is something that they want to see, because media has become very, very personal. And the consumption of content has become very, very personal. While he talks about fitness apps and people going to the gym and so many fitness centers coming up, whether that will actually transform into India becoming a sporting nation or the culture of sports coming in, I'm not too sure. I would like to state a few stats in front of you. That 3/4 of Indians last played a sport in college. That means only 1/4 of the people who go to college actually play a sport. And just in comparison, I mean, United States, which always wins the largest number of medals in the Olympics, their sports persons come from the NCAA, which is the college from where the athletes are born. 54.4% of Indians are physically inactive. I can obviously ask him a question. When you do fitness over apps and you watch streaming, how do you get fit individually? That's why you will probably run to the gym to do a bit of weights, build your muscles, impress your girlfriend probably. 63 million affected by type 2 diabetes by 2012. This number has grown. So many people are affected by diabetes 2, which is a lifestyle problem. And India is going to lose up to 4.58 trillion in US dollars by 2030 due to NCDs. NCDs are non-communicable diseases. They're diseases that you cannot communicate. It's not like cancer. It's diabetes. I don't know how many of you have problems with sugar. I have. Well, I'm not communicating. It's a very personal disease. So these are the challenges. And it's good that, Ranjit's live, you communicate streaming, you make a lot of money, Hotstar is making money. I think Karthik gave an impression of how many. Just to add to what Karthik has said, there were about 8,000 downloads of the Hotstar app during the India versus Pakistan match in the World Cup. That is 36 times more the number of people get hooked.
8 million, I think.
Yeah, to internet. So that's the kind of thing that we are getting too much hooked to digitization of sports and want to consume everything on our cell phone. Well, if that's going to happen, I don't know whether whether we're going to become a nation of fit people.
Actually, just to add to that, one interesting that is happening is also that today fitness classes are being taught using live streaming. There are certain apps which have actually become very popular teaching yoga using the application. We are actually trying to bring those kinds of cultures within our application where people looking at, for example, transformations. You look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, you get energized by looking at his movies. That's how I started working out, believe it or not. I've read the Arnold Schwarzenegger encyclopedia like 100 times. But the funny part is when you see transformations, you tend to work out a lot more. So when you are able to see your friends, and that's the motivational factor, is that people don't get to see that. And if you look at the gym goers, 70% of the people don't come back to the gym. That's a number. 70% don't come back to the gym. So what are we going to do to motivate them to come back to the gym, to become fit, and so on and so forth is very critical. And we believe that technology can act as a benefactor or a accelerator to bring them onboarded within this by showing them, hey, you know what, this guy has done fantastic. So I'll go to F45, for example. There's something called F45 challenge that they have. And in F45, they basically say, hey, you know what, this guy has lost so much weight, blah, blah, blah. You get, oh, yeah, fantastic. Hey, we can do it too. Let's try it out. That kind of gives them the motivation to do it. And if that was not communicated, assume that we didn't communicate this, will that motivation come about? And that is the reason, that is where technology is going to become an enabler in trying to get people to adopt fitness, and technology has become an enabler in bringing this fitness on board with us.
You talked about technology. Last comments from Ranjit. We have to wind it up because we have the awards coming up. Is technology helping driving content for sure? But when you talk about the broader context of fitness and India becoming a sporting nation, is the emphasis more on making money or becoming a fitter nation so that the consumption of content will be over many more years than being short-lived? So my question is, what is the role of technology here to drive monetization of content?
So, I'm just trying to understand your question. So, you're saying that besides monetization, what can technology help you with?
Yes.
In terms of sports?
Yes.
So, one of the things that I could talk about right now is, obviously we're talking about how to make money because we're into the world of business, and technology is helping you. I just explained how. But otherwise, if you look at, let's say you were giving examples of US. Now, in US, if you have a school match, which is probably like a county match, there is a lot of viewership. There are parents coming in, or there is a YouTube channel, or there is probably even on the local television, because television over there is like, it's fragmented into regions as well. But here in India, how many times have you heard that there is a school division match which is being streamed live, or there's a YouTube channel, or that kind of exposure is given to maybe a prodigy or a talent which is probably 12 or 15 years old? What kind of exposure is getting? So technology can definitely step in and do that for them. So you could probably have at every inter-school level, or probably every taluka level, or even below that, maybe you could have a YouTube channel for every maybe international school, and talking about showing their game, showcasing how their talent, or even for training schools which are now being seated in probably every villages of India. Maybe you could have a YouTube channel for them, and they are showing their talent, and the talent can be recognized, and sportsmen can get their due. So that could be one of the uses of technology.
Thank you. And Karthikeya, my question to you backing the pro league in wrestling. You talked about kabaddi. Can wrestling and kabaddi ever compete with an IPL?
Of course it can. As a matter of fact, it is already. So not in the same parlance as money, of course, because the concept is fairly new. It is always difficult to convert you have to be innovative and evolutionary. So you have to realize that we've converted an individual sport into a team sport. We've converted a sport which is predominantly a male-dominated sport to a team which has 4 male players and 3 female players. So again, it is also about changing the rules of the game without losing the essence of the sport. We've worked very closely with the federation and trying to not change any of the rules which are set out by the Olympics committees or by the federation, but yet make the sport more entertaining. See, one thing is very, very clear. Nothing is etched in stone. It has to evolve. Even cricket would have not survived if IPL did not come. It started from a 5-day format to a 1-day format to a T20 format. God knows where it will stop. So it might go to 6 balls for all I know. But all I'm saying is that we have to open it, we have to approach it with a very open mind. We have to approach of sports as a part of our life. I'll give you a specific data. About 58% of people that consume content on their mobile phones consume entertainment content. 42% consume sports. And this is on the Android phone. On the iOS phone, 77% consume entertainment data, and about 23% consume sport. So that's the differentiation between people who use Android phones and iOS phones.
I think Ranjit is hearing you, and he'll need to speed up there in terms of Android phone and make sure the live view works better.
So what it means,
good feedback for you.
What it means is that the phones which are lesser in price, which are not as expensive as the iOS phones, they are more inclined towards sport, and that is a very healthy sign. Also an open sign, because Android is much larger in terms of market share.
Yes.
And having said that, I think if people see, it's a whole process. You have fans, you have engagement, you have loyalty, you have interest, you have rivalry. It's all interrelated. You don't even need a sport to build all of this. A Dream 11 has done it without a sport itself. They've just built communities on their own. So level of interest in people is there to build those communities, be active, and contribute. The problem is not with the people, the problem is with the product that we are putting out there. There's simply not enough products for which people want to follow, which they want to see, and which they would like to, imbibe in themselves. And if they see it, they will imbibe it as well.
How many of you agree with Kartikeya? Raise your hand and ask your questions. Himanshu, not you, somebody else. Yes, you please. So that's our question answer session. Starts with whatever he said. You have to take off. You agree with him or you don't agree?
I absolutely agree with him, and in fact, it's one of the most interesting panel discussions that I have been a part of in the last so many years of being involved with sports. My name is Commander Vikrant Malan. I'm representing Jharkhand. I'm coming in from Ranchi. I'm part of a public sector who's promoting sports. Incidentally, we are also getting an award today, so thank you, Fiki, for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Sir, whilst I have got to know about internet leveraging technology and OTT and how it is, sir, the rural India, please come to Jharkhand and see, we are still deprived of basic facilities, leave alone internet and smartphones. There is no electricity 24/7. So therefore, some other measures need to be developed to bring sports to people. 25 years ago, internet wasn't there, yet the love for sports existed in Europe. We are trying rugby, we are trying all sorts of sports. The games are being played, nobody goes and sees the sport. So there is more to it. Maybe we need to relook at the entire thing by looking at our rural sports. PlayStation developed Gulli Danda as a game. It was a major hit. So maybe we are not meant for, and it came out very well from you, sir, that we may not be just meant for a particular game, but we are just trying to push it because we are trying to go to the Olympics. Maybe we can develop a game which is in-house and then take it to the Olympic. Maybe that will add value to our ecosystem. Coming to ecosystem, sir, another point here is, unless there are people whose livelihood is related to the sport, I don't think the sports can develop. The Fanonomics will not develop. So if we are looking at children playing football, we may like to have an industry which is predominantly being run by Karachi and Pakistan, our neighboring nation, enemy nation, by making our rurals make football by hand, and therefore their kids play with that football, and therefore the stadium in which they are working, the grass is being cut by those people, the security system has been put in place by them, the tickets are sold by locals, and the entire ecosystem around that also works. Maybe that is how we will probably have a more engagement with sports in our country rather than a few people who are rapidly getting engaged. And finally, sir, there is no dearth of infrastructure. Multiple utilization of similar places is the key to having more people involved with sports and taking our nation to become fitter. In a small data, the average height of a German has increased by 15 centimeters in the last 150 years. So they are becoming fitter and we are becoming fatter. Thank you, sir.
Actually, you talked about fan and economics, how they connect. One thing that comes very clearly out of this, how you connect, is the connectivity. That's what you meant to say. And of course, as Kartika said, the right product for the right people. You can't be having 10 different products and then impose on you and say, okay, go and win a medal for Olympics. No, it won't work, right? That's what you probably meant to say. That's what Kartika meant to say. And
let's take China's example. They've set up one of the largest basketball leagues in the world now, which is almost paralleling the NBA. It's an imported sport for them, but they've done phenomenally well because people have accepted it. Now, traditionally, Chinese haven't been very tall, and this is not a sport of choice, but it has evolved very beautifully in there. Does that mean it'll do well in India? You can't say. So, the point is you have to relate to what works for you.
NBA is trying that, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Himanshu, please, go ahead. You had a question.
Yeah, I've been working at grassroots, and the biggest challenge is that the media doesn't look at the grassroots. You have the SGFI games, the largest number of athletes playing. You have the CBSC games, the largest number of athletes playing. None of them actually collate the data of how much fans of actual games are there. Inter-college, inter-university. I've never seen a media covering out those events and actually giving them the right kind of
Sir, if I may interject.
No, hang on. He's a media guy, so he's going to defend.
No. I think that's the job of a federation, what they should do, what they don't do. If that's where it's coming from. It's not the right of the media only to report, but because this is their job.
Sir, I'm saying for the promotion of the sport.
Himanshu,
media can promote them at that level.
I have a better person to answer your question. It's not from this panel, by the way. If you look at your right, there's a gentleman wearing a cap and he's sitting right there. His name is Kamesh, and he was Kamesh. He's going to get an award later this evening, so a round of applause for him. He's going to be the best journalist. FICCI has voted him. He's from Hindu, and the day you see he's wearing a hat, he walks out from his house wearing that hat every morning, and he's sunburned, he's got plenty of experience, doesn't really cover cricket, and he's got massive experience on all Olympic sports. He's wearing a Khelo India. Can you stand up, Kamesh, please? And a round of applause for him. He is the guy who covers grassroots sports, you know, and people who are engaged with tennis like him. Any sport they like him. That's because he's always there. And he's probably the only journalist who's been here since morning and till the end of this discussion. And can you please answer the question he has?
Anshu himself knows all the answers. I'm not better to answer him.
No, he said that the media doesn't do enough. Kartikeya kind of said that it's a role of the federation as well.
What he is saying is true. There are only very few exceptions, and we cannot say that they are doing right or wrong, because media has become an industry and a business. So once it is business, people sell what sells. You can't ask to sell this because they are doing business.
That's absolutely right.
Absolutely correct. So that answers your question.
So actually, just to add to that point, we have, I gave you the example of the Tamil FC streaming their events live. We think that these kinds of people, allowing the people who to stream their own events and so on and so forth, is the key to the success of these grassroots level sports. In India, in Chennai specifically, for example, you have the Hindu, but you also have the Ananagar Times and the local newspapers, for example. So the local newspapers address a community standpoint, and the Hindus of the world address a city and a major standpoint, if you like. So the grassroots level sports have to grow from that micro communities that we have to create, and thereby increasing that, the visibility to that person. So a person who puts it up on suddenly becomes a star on the internet, and that kind of a star can be created from a platform like ours. Is what is our vision. We call it, how do you do, is a neighborhood, everything sports, neighborhood sports is what we basically tagline ourselves. The reason is because we believe that those kinds of content coming in and people getting recognized through the content that they post is what we are striving to achieve.
Last two questions.
Shamatru, can I just add something here?
Yes, please. Go ahead. First, introduce yourself. Let people know who you are.
Yeah, okay. My name is Rohit. I look after the Fit India movement here, and I'll say something in my personal capacity because I have a television background. I used to be in television at one point in time. I think in sport, and I was associated with ESPN from 95 when it started its operations in India. I think the leagues and the federations, when the leagues are planned, they're not even planned from a broadcasting perspective. I don't know how many grassroots level initiatives are planned from a perspective of having a production in place. I mean, who can forget the Transtel production of telematches, which was in 70s and 80s from Germany. I mean, they at that point in time, I don't know how many marathon is very difficult to produce on TV. But there is somebody who took the call of saying we have to put it on TV. Otherwise, games like marathon were never, or events like marathon were never even envisaged from putting, and they become popular. So it is upon the organizers also to budget in, like we chase sponsors and we actually budget in, we have to have X, Y, Z, this is the kind of event we want to plan, this is my budget. I don't know how many, the federations or the leagues are dependent on media. They say once we have the thing in place, the event in place, then we'll go reach out. It should be planned at the basic level itself. Okay, we will do an event. How does the amplification come in place?
I think the federation should get in touch with Ranjit.
One more point. I'm just saying here. We've talked about, Karthikeya talked about cricket. There was a point in time when BCCI paid Doordarshan 50,000 rupees per match to cover. Today BCCI charges 50 crore per match, rights fee. Absolutely. So that's the target. I mean, 83 happened and India won the World Cup.
Yeah, that's how the business
it's not that cricket wasn't there in 60s and 70s. But in 80s, BCCI paid 50,000 rupees to Doordarshan to cover each match, one match. So that's the transition that has happened, and somebody had that vision there to exploit the wave.
No, I completely agree. I want to add a point here that a lot has changed from the 60s and 70s, from the number of television sets to number of interfaces and screens and the number of people that it actually reaches out to. I just want to make one point, which is the most pertinent. Content, the way we have seen content grow, and most of the data that has been published on content consumption, is that content is hyperlocal, whether it's news or otherwise also. Entertainment, sports, the evolution of content is going towards a hyperlocal market. So it will be wrong to say that people are not interested in the grassroots sports. What it means is, even let's take news for an example. People want to know, 95% of people want to know what's happening in my street, in my colony, in my residential area, in and around me, my community. That is, 5% of people want to know what is happening at a national level and so on and so forth. So this concept of community or at a grassroots level very much exists. The problem is not that. The problem is that there is no financially viable solution as a platform that ensures that the business of sport can make money for the entire ecosystem, and that has a flow which flows top down. If it is established at the top, it will come to the down, it will percolate down. So the problem remains there until unless we don't look at the problem from a perspective that there has to be a financial model which works for each and every stakeholder. No one's doing anyone any favors. Neither the media, nor is the federation, nor are the players, nor is anyone else. It's only when every stakeholder is taken care of and a business model and a platform which allows you to make it successively, continuously, has longevity in it, it will survive and it will grow like cricket did and like other sports will.
Can I add to that?
Thank you very much. And one last final question. If you don't have a question, we will wind up. Yes, please, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ish Anand. This is to the entire panel, and I think from the deliberations that have happened, it's very, very evident and clear that content is king. But what Mr. Karthikeya Sharma said last, that that business model and that revenue model, I think that's where the deeper pockets win the battle. There's a tremendous amount of content available, like you mentioned earlier, at the hyperlocal level. But is all that coming up top, and is talent being spotted, or is the sport being popularized from that hyperlocal level, or is it coming from that top-down approach? So I think there's a lot of debate around that, but until systems don't evolve to be able to put that in place, we may miss out on a lot. That's
absolutely. In fact, having been in this industry for more than 35 years, hyper-local, you can say anything, there can be hundreds of different policies, but the day when Times of India or Hindustan Times, the two national dailies that we have, make Kabaddi the lead story on their page, sport has arrived. Thank you for being very patient, and is there anything else that you want to know, please let us know, and look forward to another great evening with you all together at the awards night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, a big thank you to all our panelists, and that brings us to the end of the panel discussions. A very fruitful and action-packed day this has been. After that rousing beginning in the morning, we had the Honorable Minister Kiran Rijijuji and esteemed dignitaries, and then all our esteemed panelists. I think they've deliberated and discussed how on various aspects, from grassroots development to science and technology, and of course we've spoken about social media, everything that could have been covered has been done today in this sports summit. And just for your information, the India Sports Awards ceremony, that will also begin in the next few minutes, but the venue for it is the second floor conference hall. So the awards ceremony will take place in the second floor conference hall. So all our guests who are here with us, we'll request them to maybe have a cup of tea and then join us for the awards ceremony, which will start in a short while from now. So second floor conference hall is the venue once again. And once again, a very big thank you to all our panelists and moderator.
Yes. yes, of course. That's how cable TV was born. That was the concept of cable TV that you
It's not the national players will play them.